Costume avec les costumes de ces deux petites filles. Je vais laisser en fait Kim vous parler des costumes. Kim, please. Thank you.
Okay, so the baby doll tradition is credited as being one of the first women's street masking traditions in the United States. When they started, it was not okay for women just to walk on the public streets. The idea was that if a woman was on the public street unescorted, she was a public woman, meaning that you know what that means. But these women stepped outside of the boundaries of respectability because it was denied them. Women's participation in Mardi Gras was supposed to be looking at the parade from a safe distance, perhaps from a balcony, or certainly not parading themselves around. So the baby dolls were working class women. They were women who were defiant, and they were determined to insert themselves into Mardi Gras. So they created a tradition in which they could costume, and they took on the name baby dolls because that was the baby doll at the turn of the 20th century was a sex symbol. So it was a new idea that men and women were going to call each other in their familiarity with each other, their romanticism, baby, and that kind of thing. So they said, we're going to be baby dolls. And they dressed up like little girls with bloomers under their skirts, and they danced and they pranced and they had a great time on the streets on Mardi Gras Day. On Mardi Gras Day in the Black community, it was said that you could be whoever you wanted to be on Mardi Gras Day. And so the baby dolls were small groups, maybe 3 to 10 women, and there would be men with them, and the men would also mask as baby dolls. They would dress in little short skirts and have bloomers, and they would pretend. There was a lot more of that before the civil rights movement pressed for integration. And what's significant to note about the civil rights movement and the impact on culture in New Orleans was that the civil rights movement emphasized well-dressed, well-spoken, calm, peaceful African Americans who were who wanted to show that they were equal to whites and therefore they were deserving of integration. These traditions didn't go with that script. They said that we are good enough as we are. We don't have to be a certain way in order to have our rights. And so there was a lot of pressure on these traditions to go away. And many of them did go away after the civil rights movement in the 70s, the 80s. All of these traditions began to die out, including the Zulus and the Mardi Gras Indians. But these are representatives, the two on the end. The one in the middle comes from a different tradition, and that tradition is an integrated group, and they were celebrating goddesses. And so the African American woman who crocheted the Josephine Baker suit in the middle, she handcrafted everything, is a testimony to Josephine Baker and the African goddess, the Yoruba goddess Oshun, embodied in one. So we have Africa, we have African Americans, and we have, the melding of the old and the new parading on the street. So you have what they call promiscuous maskers, which means a person, masking individually. You can ask me questions. Everything is self-financed. Nobody has any grant money, no fundraising. Everybody takes from their meager salaries because they're working class people, and they buy the finest that they can buy to represent themselves. So that's just a little bit about the baby dolls. Steve already told you about the Skull and Bones group. What's important is to note, one last thing. The baby dolls used to sing little Creole chants. They would sing in Creole. Even the Indians used to have chants in Creole, and some of it still had connections to Europe, to some Voodoo and Yoruba religions. As people stopped speaking French, those traditions died out, and so it's just important. It's just important to note that with the loss of that particular culture, it was also lost a lot of the retentions, so to speak, of Africa and Haiti in these masking traditions. But to survive, they had to change with the time. The Skull and Bones group would come out and they would say, "We the dead, we the dead, we the dead." If you think about it, in English, if you put a comma right after we the dead. So the ancestor is the important thing that they are representing. Every part of this now has to do with ancestor commemoration, memorializing, and veneration. You'll even see it in the body of the suits. The Indian suits will have the portraits of people who have passed on. So preserving this for my ancestors is now something that is an active and important part of these traditions. The Skull and Bones group are our moralists. They say that you have to live life in a certain way in order to survive. And in an urban landscape, there's so much tension, so much violence, so much drugs, so much underemployment, that this is a reminder that they want to give to the community to save the young people of the community. And one additional thing that I'd like to say, when I'm thinking about the Indians, the baby dolls, and the Skull and Bones groups, is that the skull and bone, the baby dolls and the Skull and Bones represent the beginning of life and the end of life. And to me, the Indians represent the midpoint of life, the courage and bravery that you need to weather life's storms, when you're facing a racist society. So I look at the baby dolls as the beginning of life, the Skull and Bones as the end of life, and the courage is represented by the Indians that we need to get through life. The remaining suits that are on display, I'll mention a technical component. The suit on the left is a suit tribute to Marie Laveau, but you can see that the panels are flat and they tell a story. We call it narrative storytelling. It's what we call an uptown style. The city is divided between uptown and downtown, which represented the American section versus the Creole, and the Afro Creole section of town. And the uptown section, they wear their flat panels and they wear ostrich plumes, feathers. The downtown style, represented by this white suit, and also the pink suit at the very beginning, is the downtown style. It's abstract, it's three-dimensional. And that's a very important distinction to be made about these suits. The suits on the final end represent part of the exhibit that we did called Mystery in Motion, African American Masking and Spirituality, at Mardi Gras. Many of the people who are masking, the 40 or so people, in their storytelling suits, they represent scenes of Native Americans fighting with U.S. soldiers, because that is a way that you can represent rebelliousness, even though it is a superimposition of your blackness onto Indians in order to fight white people. So many people still make those narratives. But there is a new tradition that's developing, and it's a spiritual tradition. And many African Americans, I would say maybe about 24 African Americans, are completely devoted to representing spirituality in their black masking Indian suits. You will find symbols and iconography of ancient Islam and of the Islam that was developed by African Americans through the 1920s, 30s, the Nation of Islam. You'll find Rastafarians who will make suits that reflect the Rastafarian religion and ideas and aspirations. You'll find many, many people making suits in honor of the African Yoruba Orishas. The suit of Shango, we can walk over there and I can point it out to you. The suit,